Yeah. It's important. So Chemda Serum says you make the bracha first and then make the chaim afterwards. Oh, I told you, Malcolm Shakli Baro.
Let's check both the Rebbeim for Niftar and Tanisim.
Yes. I told you that?
No, I know Yaakov Wine was Niftar.
That's right. I told everyone. I try to fast in the Yahrtzeit of my parents. I'm very mocked to fast in the Yahrtzeit of my Rebbeim. Yeah, there's an omek to it. We're going to discuss that. But we'll focus on Moshe Shpirat.
It's very different with Yaakov and Moshe.
No,
They're also the same.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Yaakov Milabar, Moshe Milagav. Source says. It's whatever.
Right. Was very logical. Everything has to make sense. Shock.
That's right. And Moshe was very much the same way. I mean, it's another time we'll go into what exactly were the machleks in between them. But first,
they knew each other.
But they used to fight through me, send messages back and forth. L'chaim.
We'll see you again.
I doubt if Yaakov Wine myself with the Rambam was thinking about the Zohar.
That's correct. There you go. That's right. That's right. I just had discussed it with both of them. Anyways, but just in one of the lighter moments in Shir, which was rare. It was a very intense shir. It was a Friday afternoon shir. Even when Shabbos came in at 4 p.m., the shir started at 1 p.m. There's no joking around. Everyone in the shir was accomplished Rosh Yeshiva. I was the youngest guy there by far. And if Shua Hartman wasn't that shir, Kiva Tatz was that shir. Not very big. Anyways, but in one of the lighter moments, which was rare, he once said the name of one of the Gedolei Admorim. I don't remember whose name was, said that if the Torah would only be matir avodah zara, we would worship the bottle of schnapps. That's what we would do, because he sham delanu, right? Because there's nothing that Goyim want to do more than kill Yidden. And say, we're going to make the plans tonight, kill the Yidden. So after the work, they go to the kretschmer, they go to the bar, and they get toit shikker, right? Dead drunk, right? So, okay, tomorrow, right? And they say, okay, we go after work, we go to the bar to discuss how we're going to kill all the Yidden, drink, and get to it. And that's the secret of Jewish survival, right? Their alcohol addiction, right? Anyway, so just to be Magdim, just something from the Parsha and something for Asar Teves before we get to the point we want to make. So, Vayechi Yaakov. No Parshas Stuma. The Vayechi and Vayigash don't have the 9-letter break that you generally have in the Sefer Torah between Parsha and Parsha. So he says, "Nistu enevil some mitzvah shitchilu shabdam." It's satum, closed. The eyes and hearts of Am Yisroel got closed because of Tzar Sashibah. Patently false, right? It says next week's Parsha. V'yamas Yosef chalachav v'chol adorahu. Then Vayakam Melech Chadash Asher Lo Yadas Yosef, and that's when the Shibud started. Happened a long time later, after all the Shvatim were dead. So what does it mean? What does it mean? Nistamu Einehem V'Libam. When you build pyramids, it's not your eyes and heart that hurt; it's your back, it's your arms, your legs. Nistamu Einehem V'Libam Yishol Yisrael Mitzar Sashibud. Right. So what's a name v'libam? What? Let's get there step by step, right? So we say, in Birchas Kriya Shema, Vino v'Rachman Hamrachim. Let's say Vino Lavinu Haskil, Lishma Lilmod Ulilame, Lishmor V'Lasas Akayim. Sounds great. Understanding and you teach and you also uphold. You know how to keep all the mitzvahs. Ketikunam. But it doesn't stop there. Then it goes to, as we say, the same B'Libenu Bina Lahavinu Haskil. Say V'Hayar Einenu B'Sarasecha V'Dabek Libenu Mitzvasecha. V'Hayar Einenu B'Sarasecha Einayim and Lev. That after all we said about Kilu knowing how to learn, there's still V'Hayar Einenu B'Sarasecha V'Dabek Libenu Mitzvasecha. And then we know that these two organs come up all the time together. Lo Sasarchei Levavchem V'Achrei Einechem. Vayu einai v'libi sham kol hayamim. Right? The psukim are just too many to enumerate. The eyes and the heart, always mentioned together. Sometimes very special relationship between the two. Right? But we'll explain this based on Yisroel that I heard from him over the years. That it's obviously the heart is a lot easier to explain. That you understand that you're connected to wherever your heart is. You say, "Where's your heart?" As Gemara said, "Aliba." Where's your heart? Where's your head space at? So of course, your heart is where you are, and we once spoke about this. That a person is really where his center of gravity is cosmically, is where his thoughts are. But of course, not just like 1 + 1 = 2. That's not the type of thoughts that we're talking about. It's about the thoughts that dwell in the heart that you take seriously. But that's you. What's your connection to the world outside of you? That's the of Einayim. It's your window to the world. Right? An amazing thing. These are Yisroel that I heard from him over the years. The first thing that Hashem creates is light. That's crazy. There's nothing to see. There's nothing to see. Right? You're going to build, like you build this place. The first thing you do is put on the lights before you put in the floors. That's the last thing you did, is turn on the lights, right? When there's something to see. And the Drasha comes, creates, there's nothing. And the first thing is or. What? So explain to us, the Maharal always says it, but you don't really understand the Maharal until you learn Parshas Moshe. You should know, there's not a word in Maharal that you can't, translate with a Ben Yehuda dictionary. But you say about, we're all friends, he used to say about Ben Yehuda Yamash. Right, he held it was like the big, precursor to Art Scroll. Really, the Mamash held that he came to destroy Torah by giving us, modern Hebrew, and now it has to do with Asar Teves, Targum, removing words from their original biblical meaning. So on Matzlema. In like for truly Gdov Lanu at Perek Harishon Shel Mor Nevuchim. Zemashem Ratzul Lasot. The first parak of Mor Nevuchim is on Tselem. And so it's not a physical thing. Right? Tselem is your spiritual form. Right? We're going around as Koach HaHoge.
They translated that as fairy tale.
Yeah. And he mentioned Art Scroll a few times also. And Korim superstition. Right. Art Scroll translates something from Chazal's. Superstition. He said it, so he said it. Oh, he was the first to see that cancer coming. Okay, we had a lot of shurim on that. Right. Anyway. Anyways. Yeah, so so I'm saying, going back to the Maharal. The Maharal is a very deceptively simple book, but you have to understand that he uses certain terms over and over again. Every time he means it differently. You have to, because he was limited in his lexicon that he could use, because he didn't want to use lashon nister. So he uses like terms like havaya, heder, chomer, tzura, over and over again. But every time he means it's something different, because he couldn't get into the pratim. Because he was at that in this door, they tried to say only b'lashon nigla. So Maharal is very deceptively simple. But to really be omed al omek hadavar, you really have to figure out in context exactly what he means. What he calls this tzura, this chomer, and use that term also by something else. And every time it means it a little bit different, right? The details thereof is from the lexicon of Chachmas HaNister, right? Right, okay, and Rebbe Moshe, for amongst the many things they gave me, opened that up for me. All right, so the Maharal says, or is mitzias, or is why is or mitzias? And the Maharal says a few, but or is mitzias, because what's the definition of reality? How do you define to exist? How do you define that? It's a big question in philosophy. To exist is what God wants to show you, what Rebbe Moshe wants to be megala to you. That's the definition of existence. Gilui. That's why the first thing created was light, right? The mechanism of Gilui. The mechanism of Gilui, of revelation, is what sets the tone for existence. That's the side, Summa Choshev Kames. Right? Well, it's a cruel thing to say about a blind person. No, he's out of reality, because reality is what the Rebbe Moshe wants to show you. Right? That's why Summa Choshev Kames. Right? So, and then he explained that another shir. He tells that now that's the Indian of ayin hara. Why should ayin hara work?
Right? It says saki noher, like in Suma's a saki noher.
Right.
Saki is too much light. Right? Explain that also.
No, I did not hear him comment on that, right? But as a suma chashav kames, right? But it's because the sense of sight is your window to the world. So it's like he's dead. He's minutak, right? He is cut off from reality. And they explained also that's part of the mechanism. It's not the whole story, but it's part of the mechanism of ayin hara, right? Because the visible layer of reality is Rosh Hashanah. If you could see it, it's the visible layer of, because you might say mapitom, a person can't be magdish davar sheino shalom, right? A person can't sell something that's not his. A person can't be magdish something that's not his. So why could I put an ayin hara on something that's not mine, right? No, the visible layer of reality is Rosh Hashanah, right? Yeah, that's if you could see it, then you have a shaykhus to it also. Because that's actually part of the mahus of existence, is its visibility, right? So, so your heart being in the right place. Well, you have no idea what you are without your eyes, right? Your eyes are your window to the world. So now, then, sort of once that's your antenna, and then the question is, whether you're now connected to it with your heart also or not. But without eyes, there's no connection. There is no connection to the world outside of you. There's no connection to Torah, right? That's why Torah is called Or, Kiner Mitzvah Torah, or Yeraisa, right? And even Torah Shabbat Peh, which it's not. It's also called Or, but just over there it's a little bit trickier. You have to make a mental picture based on what you hear, and we discussed that with him. But it has to come up to a zoivi so clear as if you could see it, right? Because if you don't see it, you're not connected, right? So, the idea of the visibility, and also that the visibility means something. That's what's connected to the heart, right? And that's called connection, with Einaim and Lev combined. That's all to be connected to something outside of you, connected, right? And that's what the word das also means. Das, lashon connection. It's an amazing thing. The Gemara says, brothers, komi she'embo das lesof gola mimkomo. Gola starts with chisar nadas, right? You're not connected. Well, if you're not connected, you're not rooted. You're not rooted, you will lose your position. That's just a matter of time. That you have no roots without any das. Yet. And the das is that's the chibur of Einayim and Lev together. Make that chibur, right? So now, when Yaakov Avinu was nifter, right, Am Yisroel lost their Einayim v'Lev. Of course, the physical shibud didn't start. The tsar shibud, tsar miloshin, narrow, like satum, right? No space, narrow-minded. Don't see the big picture, and you lose your bearings. The Am Yisroel began to lose their bearings, their Einayim v'Lev, right? When Yaakov Avinu was nifter, right? Because Chazal say, when they first started being enslaved, they thought it was their patriarch duty. They were like sweet talking to the whole thing. They could not see where this was going, right? They walked right into a trap, right? Because they lost their perspective. Their Einayim v'Lev is what was sosul, was blocked, right? And the challenge is to unblock it, right? That's the disconnection that there was. So now he explains us another shir. Right, that of course, we don't have to go off on the precursor for art scroll. Was Talmud Melech, right? And there's two lashonos of it in Mesechus Sofrim. It was 5 skenim, and also kosher kiyom shenasa bo ego shenetrechotz li targim kol tzorka, right? And then there's of course the more well-known story with the Shivim skenim, according to the Mesechus Sofrim Shivim Shnayim. Right, and and they had to change 13 things for him. 13 things had to be changed. Right, right. So we said this. I didn't hear this directly from him, but I heard from Yisrael saying, learn from him. Right, that of course, once you have to tamper with the truth, it's a pagia and achdus of the Torah. It can't be. I have this aspect of Torah correct, but there's over here I'm krum. But it's okay, So I do X, Y, and Z correctly, and I understand it correctly. This I understand krum. Torah is one integrated living organism. A krum kind of one part of Torah is a pgia and achdus HaTorah. Because it has to be a perfect achdus, like a living body. If one organ is sick, the whole body is sick. Right? It eventually spreads to the rest of the body. That's what it means. Yud Gimel Dvarim Gematria Echad. So even these shibushim is a whole pgia and the achdus of Torah. Right? So now we said, in Shir a few weeks ago, that the story of Talmud happens before Hanukkah. Right? Hanukkah happens, 60 years later, approximately, something like that, with the Assyrian Greeks. This was the Egyptian Greeks. So that was the Assyrian Greeks. And the Yevonim broke in Yud Gimel Pirtzes. In the Sorag, around Harabais, they broke it in 13 places, right? 13 places, was not a coincidence, right? It was connected to 13 things that changed in Torah. When the Torah went mibifnim lachutz, it went out of bounds, and put koach in the chitzonim, that Divrei Torah went lachutz, where it doesn't belong. So now the chitzonim could break in 13 places, mamish parallel to the 13 ways that the Torah was corrupted and being taken out of bounds. Right? But the whole thing is that we have to keep Torah, in its place, not take it out of context to make it relatable, right? Right. We have to keep the Torah in its place and make a chibur with it when it's in its proper place, without taking it out of perspective, for the sake of make it as they say, relatable. Right? So now in a few other shul, when I first got to Shir back in Tufshin Nun Gimel, right, we were learning, a few marachs of panim, face. We had like 6-7 Shir, I mean, what it means, a panim. Which, Pi Chachmas Hasoda, there's a chapter on it in the Rambam in the Mor Nevuchim, and it's a big Indian, comes up in a lot of contexts. And of course, just say right now that, when you generally hear, Mahamorim from the contemporary people, of course, they'll say a lot of Maramakomas, but as they say a lot of Maramakomas, the Yesod and the rigid definition gets diluted as you're stretching it, because you want to shtup in, because I could shtup in this medrash, I could shtup in this maraka, so I can show off that I know it, and then the definition gets stretched and clouded, diluted, as you want to shtup in, as many Maramakomas as you can, right? Right? By him, it wasn't that way. So of course he was sholit, shlita malaya, and all this for him, but everything that he brought in was betuf tam that adds this layer of hezbollah. The hezbollah wasn't getting diluted or stretched thin with the ribui of maramakomis, because every time he brought in another maramakom, it was to add another layer, and that's what the maral really means, right? And this is what the lesson meant, and it was, and only not bringing in that, creating a chum, but bringing in that, adding another layer to build up this yesod, to show how it transverses through these different svarim. Each sefer just gives another angle to the same yesod, as opposed to like diluting it amongst the, charcuterie board of maramakomis, right? Right. So I'll call put him, when in the shiurim of punim, on the idea of punim, which of course you have to see a face, right? So amongst the things they taught us is that everything is in the punim. All Esther spheres are in the punim. That's the scene of Chachmas parts. Everything you did with any part of your body is all written right here. I told over a story. I'm not going to tell it over again. I did with my own son. But anyway, so Al Kobe. So he goes. That's what it means. Torah has a punim. He went on to, and that's one of his art scroll rants. It doesn't have the punim of Torah. You're not looking at the face of Torah. Face is a living, not just everything, but it's alive. If I take all 2 eyes, 2 ears, and nostril, put it in a bag, hand it to you in a shopping bag, that's not a face. Everything has to be masur in its proper seder, right? But it also has to be alive. As Ramchal writes, das tfunis, the ponim is the nakuda sachibur between guf and neshama. And that's why I can know a lot of what you're thinking on your face. If you're happy, I see it on your face. That's what it means. Also, ponim beponim dibra Hashem imachem by Har Sinai. And Chazal say ponim beponim for ponim masbir salgada, and these ponim for halacha. And Torah has a face, right? So it's right. So we have to keep Torah in its place. Always see its original face, and just build a bridge there, not take it out. Always see the punim of Torah. Imagine the comments of Baruch, a Schottenstein and give Shifra. Right? Because I felt as a pgia in the punim of Torah, right? You were not seeing the face of Torah. And Torah's being taken lachutz, you're not seeing the punim of Torah. So, by the way, if you ever hear those tapes from Tufshin Nun Gimel, I would say, Mishu hiskir kan acharei hashur b'shavua shavar et hadas tvunas al inyan shel panim. Am Mishu. It's good to know I'm somebody. Right? Anyways, but Torah has a face, and I use alluding to what both the Rambam writes in the Yahrtzeit and the Kuzri writes, that all religions talk about the same stuff. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, don't eat any junk food. Everyone says the same stuff, right? Over and over, right? So all the religions look the same. You got to serve Hashem only, and you should no ulterior. Everyone says the same stuff, and they all sing and dance also. They do a better job than we do on that, right? If singing and dance would be important, then the B'nai Chum would be the Am Yisroel, not us, right? Element. So he says, so both the Rambam and the Kuzri use the same mashal. It's amazing, that it's like you have a statue, that is a perfect replica of a human being, right? And from far away, it looks like a person. You got to get up close to see that it's dead. And our Torah, so from afar, it looks the same like all the other religions. They're parallel. They also have their very similar parallel ideas. You come close to it, you see it's alive. It has a neshama to it. That's what we call nishma satira, right? The primus. But you got to get close to see it, right? It's like to get into shir by him. He tested you, right? He put you through the ringer, and a person who can't make a lane, a person who wasn't holding lumdus had no entry there. Of course, you can't compare a person who has the lumdus, which is the way it was always meant to be. The Ariyah Koresh was the biggest in Pilpul in his door. In every sugya and shas, he had 6 malachim al pi nigla, and 1 al pi sod, connected to 6 days a week in Shabbos. In Pilpul, he was the biggest, right? You need that chachma, to be very, especially when you deal with abstract ideas. You need the power to discern, to root out any sheker. So you shouldn't come lidei hakshama, right? So, because these ideas, are very abstract, and you need these kalim that you develop with lumdus, right? In order to understand these things properly, and also not to be nishtabish, especially since the sitrach is very much mizgara when they try to learn these things, right? And you have to be on your A game. But I'll put him, you got to get up close. Of course, you have to go through all the steps. You have to have, a shaykhs to, not just halacha, but lomdus and analytical thinking. And chokhmah sayigoyon, right? Logic, how to think through rechen. And then after, when you get through all the steps, you get close. You could get to nishma satara. You have to get up close, right? And that's, of course, being beside a Rosh Yeshiva, and he was very big. He was, his particular area especially was, Seder Taras. He was a mumcha gadol, the mumcha of the door, Seder Taras, all the big, there's a disproportionate machloks in Rambam and Ravid in Yonei Taras more than anywhere else, right? Throughout the Mishnah Torah. And he had it all on Royce, so he was a grade A lam. He was Rosh Yeshiva at Stanford for a few years, it's Lois Daya Milsa. No, but he was, he said Shir and Beis Talmud, when both Rafut and Reb Dave were there. No, he was,
interesting that we know Ramosha is machshava, but he's saying it's a baki and Chalter Kula.
No, but that was b'yesod. That's why his definitions in all these yisods were very sharp. It was very defined. Not like these fakers that we have. It's all airy fairy, and this is that, and that is this, and also, wow, every crackhead who never did more than 15 seconds of Muhammad Seitz was a primistic yid bismanelo. And in certain ways higher than the biggest tzaddik. Okay, enough of that. That he had zero tolerance for that. So as somebody asked me if he took kvitlach, he would slap you if you would. He once slapped me almost when I asked him about. I met with some other clown who claims to be a big expert in Ramchal. I won't say his name, but afterwards I'll say. Those guys have been another total faker. Anyways. So one of my talmidim, I had my own yeshiva at that. And after that, he was a donor also. I have to go spend. I had the distinct displeasure of spending half an hour with this guy more, listening to all the shitas. It was Thursday. Shir was on Friday, so I went. I said, listen. A friend of mine told me that that the reason why Ravina Ravashi couldn't do a Mesuder Dika Sefer like the Rambam is because the klippos were too strong. He took a swing at me. Right? He had I know what his reason why Ravina Ravashi couldn't write a sefer like the Rambam, and I call also Yafabito. That's not take us beyond the scope of today's presentation. right? But he had he had zero tolerance, for anything false, anything fake, anything inaccurate, but also zero tolerance for mediocrity. Right? When I first met him, and I had first time when I was still a bocher, and he didn't let me learn by him for 2 whole years. I was in correspondence with him. So I sat with him for 3 hours, and really it was a 3-year very transformative experience. I met him in Flatbush. I used to go to Silver Lake in the summer, Camp Silver Lake. I don't know if it exists anymore, whatever he used to. So he had to air out. He had to air out a little bit after the summer before he went back there and saw. I met him over there. So it was a Burr Goshenfeld. He's Zachar Latov. He's one who was the shotgun. I sat with him for 3 hours. And 3 hours, without getting into all the details, hammered me a lot, fired me a lot. And I said, then, Harav ne'neti ma'od. Ne'neta? Mani prachim. What am I, a bunch of flowers? Ne'neta. Ani lo prachim. Ani rotze perot. I want results. I want you to become somebody. And this was, I'm dating myself. This was before the first Iraq war. Right? And like I said, I went to visit Yahrtzeit, and he sent me back to Chutzah. He refused to call me as a Talmud until 2 years later. And he said, okay, Azivuk Shechal Beretz Yisrael. That's what happened. Okay, but ain't come welcome Laharach. With the Scuds, and the arrangement I had with him during those 2 years, I would send him, letters, and I would call 3 weeks later. To at least take 3 weeks back then, right? Call 3 weeks later at 2 a.m. Israel time to speak to him and get a response to the questions that I sent him.
Still have those letters?
What?
Still have those letters?
I didn't think of copying them. Right? Didn't have that foresight. So all these man. How did they think to make copies of their letters before they sent them? Unbelievable. Right? Anyways, no, I didn't have that foresight. So anyway, it was 31st. There was so also we're in the middle of second Seder. In Yisroel, they said they start saying Tehillim, right? Because scuds are falling, right? So so I ran back to my room and I called him and I said, and he picked up. It was like 3 a.m. in Israel. So Harav, ani doeg lecha. Al tidag li, tidag la'atzmecha sheyitzeh mincha mashu. You take care of yourself and make sure you become somebody, right? Yeah. It was, he was, to him, his connection to Previous Torah was like, top floor after, mastering, Tanakh and mastering all Kol Torah and mastering Ba'omek and Lomdas. This is all part of, climbing the mountain of Miyale Bar Hashem, right? To have perspective, right? Perspective and, V'hayri Neinu B'sar Sadat, which you only get when you're close. And what he explained to us also, that's the Inyan that on the 9th of Teves, according to many opinions, Ezra Sofer was nifter. It says in Shohar Lonis Parish Taimo, right? There's a lot of conspiracy theories about that. What is on today, right? We went with the shita that Ezra Sofer was nifter. They said because Ezra Sofer gave us chibur, he was the bridge between Torah Shebachsav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. Because Sofer, right? And he was the head of the Anshe law that Kuf Chav Skenu Ubeinehem Kama Neviim. Because Torah Shebachsav is Divrei Nevuah. Torah Sheba'al Peh is all sichlius, right? And he was the bridge. And we still had Seichel Nevu'i, that type of augmented intelligence, in our learning also. And the Petir of Ezra broke that. And that's Torah Shebachsav is Nitfas B'Re'iyah, right? You read it, that's what you see. We lost our eyes. I said how Ezra so fits into the whole idea of going into Choshech, right? Now we have to figure out the Machashakim Hoshivani K'Masei Olam Zeh Talmuda Shalbava. With the pilpul, we need all the pilpul because we're blind. We don't have the Vayar and the B'sar Hashem, right? And his whole life was to create a bridge, but not that, anyone could read this stuff and say it over, and there's just too much of that going on, right? Hashem Yirachim, right? But but he was there to build a bridge, to be V'hayar and so which is this is what we lost on Asar B'Teves. I'll just end off with one anecdote because. But one day he came. I mean, this was not rare. He was very frustrated with the mediocrity of the door. And I had a few private conversations with him. I took walks with him sometimes late at night, and we had a long discussion. That's why he loved Balei Tshuva. That happens to be in general. The yeshiva world is a very cruel place. And he and many other displaced Rosh Yeshivas hang out in North Sameach. Dave Schwartzman. He was also, displaced Rosh Yeshiva, whatever, Yeshiva world, and he made no bones about it. It's a tough neighborhood, the Yeshiva world, right? It's not a meritocracy, okay? It's DEI, right? Anyway, so you have like big people, but he also felt he really liked Balei Tshuva, because he felt that these are people he could really work with, because anyone was willing to critically reevaluate what he heard his whole life, right, and start fresh. That's someone you could really work with, right? That's what you could really work with. But anyway, one time he came into Shir, ended up with this anecdote. And I hope I offend people. I really hope so. Right. So he walked. It was not rare that he came into Shir sometimes in a bad mood because it's the end of the week, and he was frustrated with the whole door, the mediocrity, no shifa for godless. So he's sitting there and he's just waiting for someone to say "Nu harav." Okay, so someone said it, right? He said, "Efo shani omed yesh kfutza shel bachurim tovim mirussia." Some of your Russian Balei Tshuva. In one place or other, יש בחור טוב, הוא כבר אצלנו שנה וחצי, מתקדם יפה, it's advancing nicely, אז הוא בא אליי, שאל אותי, הרב, יש לי שאלה. שאל אותי, אבל הרב, לא נעים לי, באמת לא, אני לא מרגיש בנוח, אתה יכול לשאול מה שבא לך. מה העניין? לא, תגיד, זה באמת נכון שהתורה זה אור גדול? כן. As lama kulam po idiotim, right? And he started banging on the table. Lama kulam idiotim, right? I could tell you many more anecdotes, but his bottom line is, we'll end up with this. It's the MAGA agenda. Make Am Yisroel great again. B'mheira b'yameinu. Chaim.